Hi, this is Shamel Lane with Sketch to Scrapbook page, and today I'm working on this sketch, which has two larger photos. I've printed them at 5 by 6 inches, and then has some pattern paper, some embellishment, and all that sort of stuff, but then all framed on a larger sheet of paper. To work on this page, I'm using my January Best of Both Worlds kit. Everything that I have left over, there are two videos so far with projects from that kit, and I'm just continuing to use that. But I am going to pull in one thing that's not in the kit, and that's a sheet of craft cardstock for the background, because the photos that I'm working with today are from our backpacking trip, and all of the backpacking photos I'm putting on craft cardstock. So I'm going to use that, but you'll only see the very edge of it because everything else is going to go in the middle. So I'm going to start with those two photos, and just like the sketch, they're going to go on the diagonal with a bit of overlap in the middle, and then I'm going to fill these two spaces with pattern paper. And for that, I'm going to use what I have left of this camera print by Studio Calico. And this is the other thing that runs throughout the travel album. On every page, there's craft cardstock, usually as the background, and there's a camera motif somewhere. It might be an embellishment, it might be stamped there, it might be doodled into the journaling, or it might be in the pattern paper. In this case, I'm going to cut 2 boxes of pattern paper, and they're going to fit in these opposite spaces. And then I'm going to mat the whole thing on another layer of pattern paper, and for that I'm thinking I will use this aqua diamond print. It's a very small print, just tiny little dots that make up the pattern, and that's by Pebbles. The reverse looks like this, and it's from their Walnut Grove collection. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those two pattern paper boxes, and then figure out how all of this is going to come together following the sketch. So here's my 2 photos with my pattern paper blocks all matted on that aqua background paper, and the pattern paper blocks are 4 inches by 5 inches, the photos are 5 by 6, and then just cut the mat ever so slightly bigger than all of that. And that's what it looks like on the craft cardstock, but there's one other element I'm going to add that repeats quite a few times in this particular album, and that's glimmer mist. I'm going to paint it on rather than sewing it, and I just want to add it to this frame so it's a bit of a shadow around the edge. And before I attach this, I just want to mark off where the box is going. So I just take a pencil and lightly mark in the edges, and then I'll take my glimmer mist with a paintbrush and paint a box that goes over that line so that I end up with the mist on the outside edge, but then I place this over the top, so you get the clean edge but then with the mist behind it. So here's my glimmer mist, and I'm using sand, which is just ever so slightly darker than craft cardstock, and then I just go over these lines so that I end up with this kind of messy painted on shadow in the background. And you want the line to go quite a bit over the edge, because anything that's inside the box won't show on the final project, but whatever is outside that penciled line will show. And then once I've painted all that in, then I just let it dry and then add the pattern paper and photo box on top. In the sketch, there are 2 areas, these 2 corners, of layers of just small boxes of pattern paper. And to start that, I cut one of the 6 by 4 portrait sheets from this story, or this paper from today's story, and then I just cut it into all sorts of different pieces. So it had this word, the discover word, and then the 2 different sides were 2 different map prints. So just cut them into boxes, and then to bring in a little bit more yellow, because this color in the discover box doesn't appear anywhere else. There are other yellows on this sheet. There's this yellow and this orangey yellow on the back, but the only other thing that actually matches that is this little bird, and he wasn't particularly what I wanted on this page. So I brought in just some scraps of yellow from one of the other papers in the kit and cut it into 2 small boxes so that I can use one in each of those spots and hopefully bring a little bit of continuity in, even though that yellow is going to be a little bit different. So then I'm just going to layer these papers, just gluing them in so that I get kind of a scattered effect. And this one I just need to cut it a little bit smaller. And then I'll repeat that same idea here, but I'll include the Discover word block on top. Go. So not a lot of extra thinking to it, just kind of taking those little rectangles of pattern paper and lining them up so that they form those 2 little corner pieces. And then my title is going to go in this box and my journaling is going to go in this one. So to pull in that idea of that kind of goldish yellow color, I'm going to use my gold thickers up here and then probably some of the smaller letter stickers as well. At this point, I have everything on the page that's in the sketch. I used all 3 alphabets for the title in the end and grounded the title with some of the teal tape, which I repeated down here. I didn't use all of the alphabets here, just the small navy blue. And I added a gold star from the thicker sheet to the end of the washi tape just to give it a little bit of sparkle in both spots. Now, I also wanted to add just a little something, a little finishing touch up here in the corner. And so I had a look at what I had available in my extras from the kit, and I punched a couple little yellow labels from that same polka dot piece that I used earlier, and then just played around with the stamps to find which different stamps could kind of go together in a little block. And it turns out that the long arrow and the bright idea are about the same width, and if you stack them together, they're about the same height as the light bulb. So all 3 of those work really well. So I've just added a pop dot to one corner of this, and I'm going to place it up here, but I also wanted to bring in just a little bit more of the tape so that that color repeats in this top corner as well. So just add that and then tuck this tag, or this little label, underneath that bottom edge of the pattern paper. And I'll add a little more adhesive to this corner to make sure that pattern paper stays down even though it's layered on top of this pop dotted piece. And I think at that point, unless, let me see if I have one more little thicker star. I do. Okay, so I can add one of these little stars up here to pull that together with this, and I haven't put the date on here. So I could do that. The navy blue doesn't have numbers, so that wouldn't work. The teal does. I think actually I'll just write in the date. And so I'll just put the date in between here in the box. This was 01/03/11. And I'll just do it really simply like that, because once it goes in the album, since this was a trip where there's a page from almost every day once I eventually get them all done, I don't really need to make a big deal about the date because it will all just naturally flow. But I like to have it included so that I can kind of put everything in order and see how the trip actually went. So that's this page done for this particular sketch. I'd love for you to stop by the blog and have a look at the guest interpretation from the same sketch, and then make a page of your own following the same sketch and share it with us. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.